Back in 2016, the broader motorsports world would be introduced to Alfonso Celis Jr., including an 11-year-old me at the time. I was on a lot of F1-related Facebook pages at the time, and I remember the thoughts on him echoed a similar sentiment. I don't remember specifics because of how long ago this happened, but the people on these pages were less than nice, to be extremely generous. So in today's episode of All IndyCar, I attempt to answer two questions. Firstly, why did people think this way about him? And secondly, what the hell ended up happening to Alfonso Celis Jr.? Welcome back to All IndyCar, the motorsports history show looking at the most interesting stories in American open wheel racing. Alfonso Celis Jr. was born September 18th, 1996 in Mexico City. Celis raced in local karting championships in Mexico from 2009 to 2012, where results and specifics are unavailable. Even on his own website, it just says karting, but we do know that he won the Turismos de Velocidad 1800cc in 2011. He then participated in the Formula BMW Talent Cup the next year, where in 5 races he got 2 podiums. He also won the 2012 24 Hours of Mexico. Yeah, to this point his junior career is pretty cryptic as we don't even know who he raced against in most of these series. His results must have been impressive as he then made 3 starts in the European F3 series at Zandvoort, where he retired from the first and third races and finished 17th in the second. He would then race in British F3 and the Santander Pan Am GP series, where his results were much better. After his struggles in European Formula 3, you'd assume that he'd attempt a lower Formula 3 series for 2014, but this wouldn't be the case, as in 2014, he would race in GP3. Yeah, the second to last step to Formula 1 after barely getting points in British F3. To the shock of nobody, Alfonso Celis Jr. got rocked in GP3 in 2014. If it wasn't for a 7th place finish at the Sochi sprint race, Alfonso Celis Jr. would have had no points and a dismal average finish of 16.5. Even with the 7th place finish, he still had an average finish of 15.8. 2015 would be equally bad. While his results would improve slightly, if you see the bigger picture, they were still abysmal. Alfonso Celis Jr. finished 12th on the points standings that year with a grand total of 24 points. His ART Grand Prix teammate Esteban Ocon won the championship. Up to 2016, the best season Alfonso has had in motorsports was a below-average year in the Toyota Racing Series, where he scored 5 top 10s in 14 races. Despite that being the case, Force India would still sign Alfonso Celis Jr. to be the team's test and reserve driver. I don't know what the team saw in him, but it's not my place to judge. For multiple races in 2016 and 2017, Alfonso Celis would test for the team in practice sessions. This stint was pretty quiet until the last time he stepped in a car for the Grand Prix weekend at his hometown track in Mexico. The pressure must have gone to him as he crashed exiting the stadium section and ruined Esteban Ocon's car. After that, Sahara Force India dropped him and his shot at F1 was over. For 2018, Alfonso Celis Jr. would race in the 2 Indy Lights races at Barber, where he scored a 7th place in race 1 and an 8th place finish in race 2. Later that year, he would also race for Juncos in IndyCar, Road America, and Portland. Road America would get off to a terrible start as he crashed in the second practice session. Even the IMS radio crew noted that and said it wasn't the way to restart your career. The race would be a slight improvement as he finished without incident. Portland later that year would be pretty good as Alfonso Celis Jr. finished on the lead lap in 17th. However, after this, Alfonso Celis Jr. would never race again, ending his career at only 22 years old. Looking at his social medias, it's been radio silence for the past few years, with his last Instagram post coming in early 2019. For the time being, nobody really knows where he went, and I can't find anything about it. The career of Alfonso Celis Jr. is one to many, but looking over the comments from motorsports fans about him, however rude they might be, they are unfortunately true. Going from karts to driving a Formula 1 car in 7 years is a deadly sign of a driver being rushed. Whoever his manager was should have been fired when he went from Formula BMWs to European F3s, let alone from 3 F3 starts to a full-time GP3 season. Don't get me wrong, Alfonso isn't out of the firing line of blame either. He wasn't quick and stuffed the car into the wall more often than not. So if I am going to throw blame, I'm gonna say 60% Alfonso's fault and 40% his manager. But with all the negativity I've shown in this video, I want to round this off with a positive note. Drivers like Alfonso are ones we need in motorsports because they make the sport's most talented drivers seem even more special. I also want to say that wherever Alfonso is now, I hope he's safe and I hope he's doing something that makes him happy.